Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Trelos Tips podcast. I'm your host, Nick Homeloan, and today we're going to be talking about rent vesting. What is rent vesting? How does it work? What are the benefits? What are the disadvantages? I really want to go through all those options today and basically give you the best information I can, as well as giving you my opinion, I guess, on the whole strategy of rent vesting. So what is rent vesting? In a nutshell, rent vesting allows you to rent where you want to live and invest where you want to invest. Because sometimes, as your family's growing or depending on where you're working, you may want to live in a certain suburb or a certain area, and the prices in that area may be a bit unrealistic, right? Rent vesting allows you to take advantage of renting in that property and then utilizing your money elsewhere for other investment opportunities, whether that be in shares or whether that mainly is in property, right? So yeah, the main benefit of rent vesting is it allows you to live where you want to live and then invest where you want to invest. Another benefit of rent vesting is the property that you'd be looking to purchase to live. This property or this area may not particularly be the highest growth suburb that you could be purchasing in, right? Some examples, looking at some of the highest suburbs last year in New South Wales, we had Queenscliff with a 50% capital growth year on year, Oakville 48.84%, and Coolah 47.9%. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't really know where these suburbs are exactly. I'd probably have to Google it, but it's most likely not going to be this place that most people here in Sydney are going to want to purchase, right? So rent vesting would allow you to purchase in these suburbs, take advantage of the capital growth, while continuing to rent where you actually need to live, whether that's for work or whatever. Some of the actual worst performers over the last year I thought was really interesting. We have Vaucluse coming in at 4.2% loss, North Manly coming in at a 3.9% negative growth or loss, and Darlinghurst at 3.7%. So these are pretty popular suburbs where I feel a lot of people are thinking of purchasing to live. And obviously, they're very desirable areas. They're very expensive areas. So I think a lot of people would just assume, Darlinghurst is Darlinghurst. Like, it's so popular. There's so many restaurants. There's so much demand. It's destined to go up. Well, in fact, it's not. Like, nothing in property is ever guaranteed. So in this situation, you would avoid losing 4% potentially of the capital value of your property simply by renting in these areas and purchasing in these higher growth areas. Another benefit of rent vesting is the flexibility, the ability to pick up and move and go to the next suburb or go to somewhere that's closer to family, or you might get a new job in a new area. By being a rent vestor, it allows you to basically pick up your things, move closer to work, closer to family, whatever you need at the drop of a hat. That can also be a negative, I would imagine, for families, people who sort of aren't interested in moving as often. But definitely for me, it's a benefit to have that freedom and that flexibility, because you might settle in a property and then, let's say 6 months down the track, new neighbours move in and they're throwing a party every weekend. If you've purchased in this property or if you've purchased in this building, it's a lot more difficult to manage that sort of issue. Whereas, as a rent vestor, you could just pick up and move. And I guess the last benefit I really want to sort of talk about is the tax benefits. Obviously, having a investment loan versus an owner-occupied loan comes with other tax benefits. I myself am not an accountant, so I'm not providing any taxation advice. But generally speaking, you'd be eligible for further deductions or further tax deductions, I guess, based on the investment loan being an investment, generating a return, and then obviously you've got things like your interest, your maintenance fees, and even depreciation in some situations. So definitely something to discuss with your accountant, but it is a benefit, I would say. Now, it all just can't be sunshine and rainbows when it comes to rent vesting. Otherwise, that would be borderline scammy, I would say. So some important disadvantages for you to consider when looking at a rent vesting strategy: capital losses. So, you may invest in an area that unfortunately doesn't appreciate as quickly as you'd like. There also are CGT liabilities, so capital gains tax liabilities, obviously as an investment versus your principal residence. Another disadvantage is, like we mentioned earlier, about the flexibility. This can be considered a disadvantage for people who aren't interested in moving as often and looking to just sort of settle down and, stay in one place. Rent vesting could obviously pose a disadvantage if, you need to move every 12 months, hypothetically. And I guess the last main disadvantage that stands out for me is you'd be ineligible for any first home buyer schemes or any government grants because they're all generally geared towards owner-occupiers. So now that we understand the benefits and the disadvantages, I wanted to run through a scenario today that I think most people could relate to, or I shouldn't say most, but I think a lot of people could understand the point I'm trying to get across, right? Let's look at a scenario of a new home buyer who's looking to enter the property market. He's looking to purchase a 2-bedroom unit, and let's say he's looking to purchase in Bondi Beach, hypothetically. Now, the median house price for a 2-bedroom apartment in Bondi Beach is about $1.5 million. Now, if we assume there's going to be about $65,000 of stamp, plus another $5,000 between your legal fees, your building inspection, strata reports, we'll round that all up. With your deposit, your 20% deposit of $300,000, it's going to bring your total funds required to purchase this property to $370,000. Now, assuming we borrow 80% again, that's going to leave you with a loan of $1.2 million. At 6.5%, we're looking at about $1,750 per week for this purchase of your principal residence. Now, $1,750 when you look at it over a week doesn't sound too crazy, but when you consider it over a year, your annual repayments on the home loan are going to be $91,000, assuming the rate doesn't change. Additionally, we want to factor in some running costs. So we're going to have to look at council rates, water rates, strata rates, general repairs and maintenance, those sort of things. I've estimated it to be approximately $400 per quarter for council rates, $200 per quarter for water, $1,200 per quarter for strata, which is pretty general. Some are higher, some are lower. And then for repairs and maintenance, I've just sort of said $2,000 a year. Now that brings us a total to $9,200. So every year, this property is going to cost us just over $100,000. Now, let's look at the second option of rent vesting, right? The median rental for a 2-bedroom unit in Bondi is $950 per week, or about $49,000 a year. So let's say $50,000. If we compare this figure straight away to how much it costs us to purchase this property, we're almost 50% saved. We've got about $50,000 left over that we can then play with. So let's assume we've still got the same $370,000 that we had when we purchased this property, right? We could keep $20,000 of that as general savings for an emergency. We could put $50,000 aside, and that would be our 1-year rental cost. And we'd still have $300,000 left over to purchase an investment property. Now, let's say we purchase a property for $750,000, okay? If we included our stamp duty as well into that figure, so another $30,000 plus the $5,000 for legals, we're all in at about $785,000. With our $300,000 that we have left over to invest, we can put that into the purchase and then borrow the difference of $485,000. Now, just to keep it simple, I've kept the interest rate the same, 6.5%, but potentially in this scenario, you may get a lower rate, obviously, because of the larger deposit you have, whatever. Anyway, so on a $485,000 loan at 6.5%, you're looking at repayments of about $708 per week or $36,000 per year. And these are principal and interest payments. We're not even looking at interest only. That would be a whole nother benefit to you. But I'm wanting to explain this scenario with a principal reduction, because eventually, you do want these properties to be paid off under a rent vesting strategy. Now, the average rental return is about 5% in New South Wales. Obviously, some suburbs will be more, some suburbs will be lower. But again, with the flexibility of rent vesting, we can pick and choose which suburbs to purchase in. So I'm just going to keep it at 5% as a average rental return, which is about $37,500 a year. And again, we'll also assume that the running costs of this property are the same as the running costs if you had purchased the property, right? May or may not be less, may or may not be more, but just to keep it consistent, let's assume $9,200. So our total outlay for this investment property is $36,800 a year in repayments, $9,200 a year in maintenance, which brings us to a total of about $46,000. Now we also need to remember we are generating a rental return from this property. So we can take that $37,500 off that $46,000 figure, which gives us a gap of about $8,500. Now we're obviously not taking into account any negative gearing or any tax benefits in this scenario. We're just looking at the numbers purely of rent in and then home loan out. So $8,500 this investment property will cost us out of pocket every year, plus our rental of $49,000. We're now sitting at about $57,000 as an outgoing expense each year. Compared to the first scenario where we were paying $100,000 a year and we had one property, we're now renting where we want to live, have an investment property that we're taking advantage of the capital growth, and we're out of pocket about $60,000 instead of $100,000. So that's, I guess, where you sort of look at negative gearing and rent vesting as a benefit. It's a way to grow your portfolio. It's a way to help get you into the property that you want to live in, and also keep your money working for you. Because the last thing you want to do, and I guess this is where some people fall into the trap of rent vesting, is, okay, you decide to go and rent a property, but then instead of investing your money, whether it be in the property, like we just said now in this scenario, or whether it be in shares or anything else, people unfortunately don't do anything with that money. They'll either let it sit there, or unfortunately they'll start to spend it. So that's the situation where you're like, well, my money's not really working for me. But yeah, that's rent vesting, I guess, in a nutshell. We obviously haven't, like I said, taken into account any negative gearing or any sort of taxation as part of this, but all those things you'd need to really discuss with your accountant, who's, you know, licensed and trained to provide that sort of advice. But yeah, if I hope this has helped clear up what is rent vesting, and does it work, or is renting dead money? Because yeah, like I said today, I think it is a good option for some people, and obviously it's not dead money at the end of the day, as long as you got your money working for it. So that's really what I wanted to discuss today. I hope you found something useful in this. And again, at any time, if you wanted to get any more information, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We've got our link in the bio. You can make an appointment with me directly. But yeah, otherwise I'll see you on the next episode. See you guys.